Greetings, brothers and sisters from around the world, and welcome back to the home, the haven, the stronghold, the super fortress of intelligent black thought. This is the Black Channel. I am your host, your brother, your humble servant, the Black Authority. Very glad to be with you all here this evening. And tonight we have a special guest joining us, none other than Jill Stein is here. After much haranguing, people have been telling me forever, you need to talk to Jill Stein. So, ladies and gentlemen, she is here in person. Welcome to the Black Channel, Ms. Stein.
So great to be with you, Black Channel. Really an honor to be here. Thank you so much.
All right. As you all know, I interviewed Ajamu Baraka in my last documentary film. So I'm very glad I spoke to him, and now I get to speak to you. All right. We are, with no further ado, we're going to just jump right off into it here. Jill Stein, I want to find out from you, because I've read your platform. Obviously, you're a very well-known person in this regard. I would like to know, what do you define as reparations?
So our campaign approaches reparations as a debt owed to African Americans who built this country with their blood, sweat, tears, forced labor, paid with their lives, paid with their liberty, paid with everything imaginable as an enslaved people on whom really this country was developed. And not only, is that a moral outrage, but it's also an economic debt. For the first century or more of this country, it was the labor of African Americans that really sustained the economy, that created the economy, and which physically built the structures of this country. So that burden of debt has been unpaid. Not only that enslavement was a moral outrage, also the fact that enslavement then rolled over into lynchings, into Jim Crow, into segregation and redlining, into the mass incarceration, the war on drugs, the school to prison pipeline, et cetera, that these disparities and the injustice did not go away. It simply rolled over into other forms. So as I see reparations, I see it as both a debt owed for labor abused and uncompensated, as well as the ongoing horrendous burden of disparities. So that debt, that economic debt for labor unpaid, has been calculated to be approximately $13 trillion. And we define reparations as the repayment of that debt owed in cash payment.
Okay. I want to find out something a little bit more specific here. When you say it's reparations, I want to know specifically who you are defining that for. And not just who that is, but who that isn't.
Yes. So our campaign at the outset had adopted a position that this is payment to the descendants of enslaved people. Since taking that position, we have heard much about the controversy as to who should receive that payment. Is it strictly people who can prove their legacy, their descendants from enslaved people, or should it be more broad? And truth to tell, I feel like it's not our decision to make, our campaign, that we are looking to broader input from the community, from the African American community, to be better informed about how that payment should be directed.
Okay. Well, just to make sure, though, who does Jill Stein think that is?
I think both are true. I think that descendants of slavery, descendants of enslaved people, deserve compensation for labor. And I also believe that those who cannot prove their direct inheritance also deserve compensation, because whether people were enslaved or not, simply for being Black, one pays with, severe burdens, limitations, really in all dimensions of life. So my own feeling is that there is a debt owed for unpaid labor, but there's also a debt owed for the continuing oppression that Black people deal with to this day. Whether you're looking at health disparities, where African American children have a death rate from asthma, for example, which is some 400 or 500% higher than non-African Americans, largely the Caucasian community. Or if you look at mortality, lifespan is shortened by about 3 years from the last data I saw, just from carrying the burdens of being African American. And then if you add to that the burden of disparities in education, which are not provided to Black communities, you add disparities of education to disparities in income and disparities of race, it's approximately a decade taken off the life of an African American.
Okay, well, let me see if I can refine my question a little bit more, because it might be a little confusing for most folks who are just joining us. Would you define it as being race-based, or would you define it as being lineage-based?
Yeah. So that's where, me personally, I feel like it's not my decision to make.
You're going to be president, so it would be your decision, wouldn't it?
And I would want to hear from the community and have the community involved in that decision and help guide that decision.
So you're saying at this point, you personally have not settled on what that should be defined as?
Yes. And in fact, our campaign began saying that it should be lineage based. And that was really our presumption. If you read our platform, that is what the platform currently says. And in recent months, we've heard a lot about the debate as to whether it should be lineage or race based. And I feel like we need to take a second look.
So you're saying we should study it?
Well, why don't we say that we begin at least with lineage based? Because we've got to start somewhere, and I don't believe we can study this to death. And, I think we have to start moving ahead. So, let me say, I think we should continue with the commitment made in our platform that we need to provide debt owed to descendants of enslaved people. But I think on top of that, there is additional payment that needs to be made to compensate for the severe limitations that African Americans are living with.
Okay. I would like to ask one last question about that in that regard, because that's an important point, because obviously, for example, when we break off into different areas, you have people who will try to make the argument that Elon Musk, well, he's of African descent. So there's a reason why a lot of people have said, no, we need to narrow this down, because otherwise it starts focusing on people to whom they are not actually recipients, or it's not actually relevant to them. There's been a lot of folks, particularly from the 20th century forward, who is subscribing things that don't actually subscribe to them. For example, we're not making the argument that it's race-based because there are too many people who could glom onto that with illegitimate statuses, as opposed to those of us who it's actually a real historical thing. No, not something that folk jump in at the last moment, because then because the waters get muddied, and then it becomes yet another lift all boats thing. That is the biggest concern that we have in that regard. So it's essential that happen. Furthermore, it would also be including people who have diametrically worked against it. For example, the Candace Owenses of the world. You can have people who have actually diametrically worked against it. So, and the reason is because historically, they're not descendants of American slavery. They might be from the Caribbean or from Africa, but they're not actually lineage based. So that's why we have so much resistance in those regards. So that's why I wanted to ask what you personally think about that, because you'd be the person making those decisions. And it sounds to me, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds to me like from what you said, originally you started from the position that this would be lineage based, but that
Right.
since that time, you've encountered some pushback or some resistance in that regard to people who are saying, no, it should be defined broader than that. Is that correct?
That's right. Yes, we're
Okay.
hearing the internal debate and the controversy that I was not aware of initially when we adopted our platform.
Now, when you say
And
internal debate, are you referring to internal to your campaign?
no, actually, although yes, it is internal to our campaign also, but it's much bigger than our campaign. I mean, more broadly within the discussion of reparations.
Okay.
That there's debate, and I have to say, from my own point of view, prior to this campaign, I personally am aware of the hardships imposed on the Black community, whether they are descendants of enslaved people or not. As a healthcare provider, I'm very aware of the price paid for living while Black. The price paid in, access to education, access to housing, redlining, etc. Lineage wasn't known, and isn't known when cops are violent to the African American community. They don't know what your lineage is, and everyone is presumed to be descendants of enslaved people. So, I'm not convinced that the full burden is contained within that circle of descendants from enslaved people, that whether you're a descendant or not, you're paying, and you take a big hit in every dimension of your life, actually. So, I feel like the debt owed for unpaid labor is legitimate and is very compelling and makes for a very concrete and specific, payment that needs to be repaid. Whereas the hit that's taken by people with dark skin is huge, and it is unrelenting in spite of one's lineage. One doesn't know, whether you are a descendant of an enslaved person or
Right,
not.
but you do know if, for example, you're an immigrant. You do know, for example, if your family moved here 5 years ago, 20 years ago, 50 years ago. That you do know. And so what you're saying when we get into race-based, which I think is what you're articulating, well, certainly an argument can be made, definitely, that they are affected by racism. But that's not saying that they are debtors of slavery. So there's the reason why we make that
Exactly.
distinction.
Exactly. But let me just throw out the concept also that racism is not limited to this country.
That's true.
Racism
That's true. But you're only running for president of this country. So when we elect you president of the world, I'll be back to talk to you for that one also. But just for where America's concerned, and this is important because one of the stumbling blocks we run into here is that people are going to say, well, you can't make it race based because that would not be legal. So have you encountered that? I mean, have you considered that, by the way, one of the arguments that people who are against it try to make is, oh, you can't do that specifically for Black people because that would be unconstitutional. So it has to be lineage based because race based is unconstitutional.
Yeah, that's very interesting. But then how do you weed out the Elon Musk types? Maybe not him specifically, but how do you then weed out? I see what you're saying. So you would say the alternative to race based is, inheritance and
Well,
descendant.
we wouldn't say alternative. We would say that the accurate one is lineage based. The other
Mhm.
argument against it, in addition to it being race based, is not just, oh, we bring in folk like Elon Musk, but also,
Yeah.
by the way, the argument they're making all the way to the Supreme Court is it's unconstitutional. So
Mhm.
we
Mhm.
couldn't go down that road. They're already waiting to say that.
Mhm. Well, yeah. I mean, I'll just say that's a pretty compelling argument. If that's the only one, if that's the only basis on which reparations can legally be made, that would be a very compelling reason to, to embrace that position of, inheritance based, legacy based descendants.
I want to ask you about the border. There's been a whole lot that's going on. I live in Louisiana. I used to live
Mhm.
in Texas, and we've seen things go from being bad to being an outright catastrophe at the border, particularly in the last 36 months. It is outright chaos, and a lot of folks think that that is deliberate. I want to ask Jill Stein, what is her position on what's happening at the border? Is it acceptable? Is it a little unfortunate? Is it a catastrophe? Where's your position on it?
It's very, it is a crisis. It absolutely is a crisis. But in my view, the most important thing we can do to solve this crisis is to stop causing it in the first place. We need to end the war on drugs. We need to legalize, um, illegal substances and treat substance use as a public health problem, not a criminal problem. Stop funding the war on drugs because that is it is a boondoggle. It's lots of income and power for drug cartels to make the drug trade illegal. So by legalizing marijuana, etc., we then deprive the drug cartels of their income and their power and diffuse the violence which is driving many people across the border. Regime change operations like overthrowing the democratically elected government in Haiti, Aristide, twice, deporting him, forcing him from power, basically, contributes to the continuing chaos and poverty of Haiti. After Aristide was overthrown, the Hillary Clinton as Secretary of State under Barack Obama reversed the minimum wage referendum that had raised a pathetic 30 cents an hour minimum wage up to 60 cents an hour, still very pathetic, but they reversed it and pushed it back so that the clothing manufacturers could continue to maximize their profits. And, this is a general problem that the U.S. conducts regime change operations, some 70 of them since the Second World War. And that's just by covert means, and then we violently overthrow governments as well. But by doing that, we basically install corporations. We overthrew the socialist president of Guatemala in the 1950s because he was going to redistribute land and ensure that peasants would have a means of supporting themselves. And United Fruit protested, so the CIA came in and overthrew that government and initiated generations of chaos and civil war. And unfortunately, this is the rule, not the exception. And so it's U.S. interference, both military as well as, corporate economic colonialism that devastates so many countries and creates the violence around that, as well as the poverty that again keeps driving people across the border. So our administration will put an end to the regime change operations, to the economic colonialism, as well as to the drug trade. We will also take real steps to actually combat the climate emergency, both in the
Well,
global
we'll
south.
we'll come back to the climate here in just a few moments. But
I
about
just want to say, though, that that is putting millions of farmers out of business and driving the migration crisis. My point
right,
here is that
there's an economic. I'm going to come back to that specifically because there is an economic component to that I definitely want to get into. So I do want to get in that. I just want to
well,
for just this moment. I'm going to come back to it. Don't worry, but I do want to stay on the border. What I'm asking though is that
absolutely, because
those are south of
just a second.
what you're saying is not inaccurate. You're absolutely correct. The United States government's behavior in Central America and South America is certainly by destabilizing government certainly does send to people in refugee status and whatnot. That's certainly true. And we absolutely are against that. But what do we do at the border where it stands now?
Okay, so at the border, first, we stop spending billions of dollars on a wall, which does not keep people out, which basically kills people, kills wildlife, kills ecosystems. So the border
Okay,
is a waste of money.
so you're against the wall at the border wholesale.
That's right, and I'm against the militarization of the border, which basically militarizes the economy and the society along the border as well, and
So
has created.
is that to say you don't want there to be any border at all?
No, not at all. If I can finish my point, instead of investing billions of dollars in the border, we will invest a lot of money in ensuring that there are the asylum lawyers and the civilian infrastructure to do background checks, to ensure that criminals are not crossing the border, and to ensure that people promptly get their papers so they can go to work, because migrants who can't work are a burden to communities across the country. But migrants who can work help develop the economies, pay taxes, and contribute to prosperous communities. And they pay their own way, so they don't need to draw down on social services that are needed by everyone.
Okay. The issue that people are going to respond to with that is that actually turns out in places where, and I should know, in places where we actually live with that's nobody near the border in Texas thinks that that's a great thing. So if that were true, why is it that the people who are closest to all the illegals coming over are not the happiest people? They're the saddest people about it. Can you just explain that one thing to me?
Are. Well, I just came from the border. I was down there for about 4 or 5 days in the Rio Grande Valley, and speaking with a lot of people along the border who are extremely oppressed, feel like living along the border is a very violent place. It's a place which is basically stripped of its civil liberties and subject to, to interrogation and effectively search. It's an environment that has been extremely militarized. It's like take local police and then multiply it many-fold in addition with the Border Patrol and ICE. And it's a very militarized environment. People feel like they don't have the resources that they need, that all of the resources for the community have basically gone into the militarized border. And that's what I'm hearing from people. And when I've shared our approach to the border, I hear enormous enthusiasm for it. And people who are migrants themselves are the first ones to step up and say they did not want to come here. They were forced to flee for their lives by the conditions related to really misguided U.S. policies, longstanding. And by our taking steps to immediately redress those problems, especially the power of the drug cartels, we can diffuse the pressure that's forcing people to flee from their lives. And I heard enormous agreement and approval of our approach to the border. At the border, to tell you the truth. And I hear enormous approval for that in our communities as well, because, people want migrants to be able to pay their own way, not to have to draw down on social services that are badly needed by everyone. Everyone needs, housing and.
So you're saying that the property owners that you talk to property owners at the border.
property owners, in fact, many of whom have had their property confiscated in order to build the wall. So yes, I did hear from a whole spectrum of people who feel like current border policy
And you're
is
saying that you talked to property owners at the border who said that the issue is cleaning up the legitimacy status of the folks crossing the border, not stopping the crossing of the border.
well, they think both. And in fact, by addressing the actual drivers here, by addressing the causes, we can massively cut down on this huge, fleeing of so many people to the border who are running for their lives. And if you talk to the migrants themselves, what I have heard over and over is they did not want to come here. And had there been any way to deal with the violence that they were dealing with in their lives, they prefer to stay. They do not want to leave their families. They don't want to leave their communities. They don't want to undertake the danger of the journey. They're not happy about having to come here, and they would greatly prefer if they were not forced to leave in order to save their lives. I've heard that over and over again.
Okay, does that also include, for example, the Chinese immigrants who keep coming over here as well? Does that include them also?
To tell you the truth, I have not encountered Chinese immigrants at the border. Largely what we're seeing at the border are largely Hispanic and then some Haitian immigrants. And boy, would they love for the U.S. not to have overthrown Aristide, and for them to have been able to create a prosperous economy without the incredible epidemic of violence that they have been subjected to. So what I hear from people over and over is that they want to stay. There may be special cases, of course. And let me add,
Right, but I'm saying that you're not saying that in your opinion, the majority of people crossing the border are not simply coming to get a higher pay scale to you, that they're all mostly, these are physical, political refugees, not people who are saying, hey, they pay more north of the border than they do down here.
From those that I have talked to, yes, absolutely. And I would add to that the sanctions, economic sanctions against Cuba and against Venezuela, which devastate that economy. So of course people want to come for more income when they're totally deprived of income, and when their economies are a complete mess. So, my point of view is an ounce of prevention is worth a ton of cure here. And we can do this in a way that doesn't pit disenfranchised people and oppressed people against each other. We need to find a solution that's going to work for all of us, because we're just, we're too independent or too interdependent. And it's a terrible thing that U.S. imperialism and colonialism has made such a mess of one economy after another that we have forced the bulk of immigrants. And, if you ask who is it that's coming across our border, it is largely Hispanic, Haitian, some Africans, but it's, overwhelmingly Hispanic.
Well, the reason why, that's a very good thing you brought up there. I'm glad you did, because this circles back to the reparations question we were having there before, because the groups that are being allowed to come over here, they're hostile. We find a lot of historic and endemic hostility, which has been one of the arguments we've been making is, hey, we have a lot of folk who are working specifically diametrically against our interests, even when you go to Central America and South America. Obviously, you're familiar with the boys from Brazil. That's been pretty much the issue when you talk about racism. Yeah, it's alive and well, including south of the American border. That's not something that they develop when they get up here. No, it's already well out of the gates down there. So we're bringing that up here along with everything else as well. So my question is, do you think that such a policy as you just espoused would actually undermine your position on reparations? Because you're bringing in individuals who would work, they're going to get off as soon as they get here, they work directly against it. How are you going to have those two contrary things work together?
I think people who are oppressed, people who have to really struggle to get a roof over their heads, to put food on the table, can be very readily induced into a divide and conquer game. I think we need to help people come to terms with injustice, which is not only racial, but it is very much economic. And at the end of the day, we need to be able to fight and to ensure that people everywhere have, have a shot at a just and sustainable and dignified life. And I think a lot depends on the particulars of who you're talking about and where. So, I'm not aware of who is fighting against reparations, but in my view, it is a failure that people have to fight for their one piece of salvation and others don't get it as well. Look where the money is going. Look at the struggle of the last several years where so many people in this country, just look at this country, have been forced into poverty while billionaires have doubled and tripled their wealth. Children in poverty have tripled in the last 3 years, while the multimillionaires and billionaires are rolling in dough. That's where we need to focus. I think we allow the super predators, the super economic predators, to take advantage of us when we allow ourselves to be talked into fighting each other for crumbs. What we need to do is ensure that those who are hoarding wealth and security need to start paying in their fair share, and we need to be sure that we have social programs that are equitably, ensuring that the American people have a place to live. And this is part of our policies as well. We call for basically an economic bill of rights that ensures that everyone has the right to health care. Everyone has a right to affordable housing. We call for the building of 15 million units of basically public housing over the next decade, and to jumpstart that. And in fact, by declaring a climate emergency, we unleash over $500 billion every year to start meeting that climate emergency. And a piece of that climate emergency, it's not only jobs and job training and a $25 minimum wage, by the way, which is also part of our program. But we call for the emergency building of housing, which is critical to solving the climate crisis, but it's also critical to solving our housing crisis. And that has to be solved across the board, and particularly for low income people and people who are struggling, as opposed to building luxury housing, which is what is done with our tax dollars right now. They're used to, provide incentives to developers who are basically building luxury housing to provide just a little tiny crumb of affordability along with their projects. To me, that is where the focus needs to be. It needs to be on where we are being ripped off as a people, and we need to resist the forces that are kind of forcing a divide and conquer mindset against us. We need to demand from the billionaires the funding and the resources to ensure that we are meeting everybody's needs at the most basic level, which is not happening now at all and will not happen whatsoever if we allow ourselves to be divided. It's going to take a unified front here, a unified front against fascism, a unified front against police violence, a unified front against the mass incarceration and the security state, a unified front against the expanding war, because that's where most of our dollars are going, right? Over half of our congressional budget is being spent on the endless war machine. And as we speak, we are on the verge of a massively expanding war in the Middle East right now. And, our tax dollars are funding this genocide going on in Gaza at the moment. And these are the real inequities that we need a unified front so that we can correct them and ensure that half of our tax dollars, half of our congressional budget is not being spent on the endless war machine, basically making the war contractors, rich. No other purpose is being served here. This is not making the world a more secure place. War after war, you can go all the way back to the Vietnam War, but especially since 2001, these have been absolutely disastrous wars, which are, they are endangering us at the same time that they are impoverishing us. We call for cutting the military budget by at least 50%. We'll still be way ahead of all the other big spenders, the big military spenders, but we can then begin to put dollars into our true security, ensuring that everyone, ensuring that we fund reparations for one thing, however you want to define it, whether it's the smaller circle or some larger circle. If, as you say, that it can only be done legally to actual descendants, then clearly that's what we'll need to do. But we need funding to redress, effectively racism in all sectors of society. So,
well, let me ask about the climate issue there, because I want to
okay.
circle back to that. Like I said, I don't want to leave that unsaid. Including south of the border, we've seen a number of grievous things happen, and you're right, that does drive people from places. For example, Flint, Michigan, Jackson, Mississippi, which I go through all the time, and we've been watching as those kind of things have happened, and quite frankly, it would be kind to say that it's negligence, although it'd probably be more accurate to say that it's engineered, and by that, there are folks who see that allowing these things to degrade, well, would this be a more benign neglect, is a lot harder to hold people accountable for than just directly going in and smashing pipes. So as far as that's concerned, I want to deal with this climate issue on something for as simple as clean water, as we've seen right here in America. What is Jill Stein's solution to something like, well, no, that's not what I want to ask. What I want to ask you is, what should we do specifically in places like Flint and Jackson, Mississippi?
We need to fix the problems, and we also need to prevent them from developing in the first place, because, we need to listen to the communities when they are hurting and sick. Certainly in Flint, that crisis took place for a long time. And if I'm remembering correctly, it began with the privatization of the water supply too, and the switching of the water supply to where chemicals had to be added, which then basically corroded the pipes and raised the lead levels, where they were not that way traditionally. So there were very irresponsible decisions that were being made by the government. People felt sick and they were told that they were making it up and that it was in their heads. That went on for a long time. Same thing is going on right now in East Palestine as well, after the spill of these very toxic chemicals, and then they're burning to basically send them up into the air. So we have institutions that are not serving the American people, that are not serving their communities, that are protecting powerful special interests, and that are not.
So what do you do about that kind of thing?
So one thing we do is we clean out our regulatory institutions, because right now they're not serving the American people.
How do you clean them out?
You close the revolving door, so it's not moving in between industry and public service. You just shut the revolving door, because right now, people move from corporations into government, high positions in government all the time. And, people cannot trust our regulatory, our regulators, when basically they're the fox that's guarding the chicken coop. And the other thing we need to do is to get big money out of politics, because right now, the weapons industry, the fossil fuel industry, let's look at that, for example, they buy their way into government. It's a pay to play system. And we need to ensure that we have a government that is of, by, and for the people, who funds you, runs you. And if our elected officials are being, elected on the basis of millions of donations from big donors, that's who they will serve. So we need to interrupt that corruption cycle, so that we actually have real choices on the ballot for local government, and state and national and the presidency. We need to have a level playing field and give people choices. Right now, people don't have choices. So in the presidential race, we have two candidates who are both want to increase fracking industry, which does what? It draws down enormously on our water supplies, and it pollutes the water, not to mention what it does to the climate and the air. And then there was all the refineries as well, which give us, like Cancer Alley. So we've got a very polluting and sick industry where the regulators are not working for us. they're working for the industry.
I
So
want to
you
ask you a
get,
question about that. And
Mhm.
now the next question might actually seem a little unrelated, but it actually is. Are you familiar with the case of Carolyn Bryant down there in Mississippi, the Emmett Till case? Emmett Till, as you know, the murder of this child, as
Mhm.
we naturally think of it, set off the civil rights movement.
Mhm.
And for the longest time, they didn't indict anybody. They made movies and documentaries and everything else about it. Carolyn Bryant, who is one of the last survivors of the committing that particular crime, she was allowed to die peacefully in a nursing home. And obviously, the Biden administration declined to prosecute. In Mississippi, they did, and the Biden Justice Department, Kristen Clark, their civil rights division failed to look at any type of civil rights. I don't know how familiar you are with the case, but I'm curious how Jill Stein's Justice Department addresses that.
um, you know, to my mind, there is no statute of limitations on murder, and I'm not aware of reasons why that should not have been prosecuted when evidence finally came to light. So I don't know the details of the Carolyn Bryant case. I'm certainly familiar with the horrors of the Emmett Till case. Um, and why that would not be prosecuted, uh, I don't know. And I would, barring some other very compelling reason, I would prosecute, our Department of Justice would prosecute that case. It was a really critical case and, emblematic of the kind of injustice that was routinely, the kind of just horrific, murderous injustice that was routinely carried out and still is, truth to tell, in other ways. But, violence continues. Economic violence and actual physical and police violence continues unabated, and it needs to be held accountable. And I would apply the same thing to police killings. Police killings need to be prosecuted, and we would establish a federal office for basically ensuring that prosecutions of police for violence in the African American communities, it needs to be prosecuted, and it needs to be bumped up to the federal level, because it will not happen at the local level where you have, cozy brotherly arrangements between police forces and elected government. Another thing that we would do on that count is ensure that there are independent police regulatory boards elected by people, not appointed by mayors and so on, not appointed by the government, but elected by people, so that these boards, these police governing boards, have the power to hire, to fire, and to conduct investigations and to subpoena, because we need to get traction around that kind of violence, whether it was happening to Emmett Till or whether it's happening, in our communities through the violence, really random and racist, white supremacist violence through police forces.
Okay, I'd like to ask you in that vein, what is your position on forwarding a black hate crime bill?
It makes a lot of sense. If we have hate crimes for other, ethnic groups, why would we not have one for African Americans who have historically, been the focal point of political violence?
Why do you think that of everybody who's out there, we're the only ones who have always been most targeted? We are the poster children for that, and we're also the only ones who don't have one. Why do you think that is?
I think because we are inherently still very much a society that was founded on the enslavement of African Americans and the genocide of Indigenous Americans and African Americans, and this has been really folded into the basic DNA and our institutions of the country. So it's something that we need to very conscientiously look at and remedy in really critical ways. And, addressing hate crimes against African Americans seems to be a no-brainer.
What on your positions on things like reparations and a black hate crime law? What would your statement be to other white people who would take issue with that? How would you sell this to them?
So, you know, in the same way that I am trying to sell you on a justice at the border, you know, that I think if we give into, you know, competing for justice, competing for a dignified life, we're in trouble because the real power holders here are the billionaires, you know, and the economic elites. And it's really important that we ensure that there's a basic level of dignity and security for all members of our society. And, you know, the numbers make this clear. This isn't rocket science. The incredible disproportion of the racial breakdown of who gets arrested, who gets confronted by police, who is, you know, pulled over for a traffic stop, violence at the hands of police, and then ultimately incarceration or the death penalty. You know, like, just pick your dimension of our system of justice, you know, and it's not there. It's very clearly not there for African Americans. So, you know, as organizer in chief, you know, and I view the role of president as not just commander in chief, but organizer in chief. You know, the job of the president is to help us understand our community, you know, and in the words of Martin Luther King, you know, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are striving for the beloved community. You know, there are just many ways in which we need to be reminded that our welfare, our survival, especially in today's day and age where we are so, subject to violence, the violence of our culture, the violence of our foreign policy. In the words of Martin Luther King, my country is the greatest purveyor of violence in the world today. It still is. You know, in today's world where our survival is very precarious, you know, economically, related to white supremacy, but also just related to, you know, billionaire supremacy, and the struggle of working people across the board. You know, over 60% of working people are living paycheck to paycheck. Over half of people are struggling to keep their housing, paying 30 to 50%, you know, of their monthly income just to keep a roof over their heads. It's not working for us, folks, you know.
That's a very true statement. I want to ask you about that. In particular, survival is a very good subject to talk about there. Would it be safe to say that you're a pro-abortion?
I am pro-choice. I am definitely pro-choice.
Okay, so but you are in favor of if a woman wants to have an abortion, she can have one.
A woman has a right to full reproductive care.
Do you believe that there should be any limits on that?
I think the medical profession has inherent limits, and late-term abortions are extremely rare and performed only under where there are serious threats to the mother's life. There are internal standards, I'd say, within the medical profession that, to my knowledge, make late-term abortion a very rare thing.
Rare, but it certainly does occur.
It may. There are errors on all sides of the spectrum here.
Okay, are you saying that there are not places that overtly, openly allow that?
Let me say, I think this is between a woman and...
Right, but between my audience and Jill Stein right now, who would like our vote, I just want to make sure we clarify that. Are you, when you talk about abortion and late term, okay, the limit, are you saying that should there be a third trimester limit, for example? And I'm not saying that one is that I'm putting out there. I'm just putting out there, since you said late term. Should there be a time limit that would say, hey, once past this time, we're not going to do an abortion? Or are you saying that up until there should not be a time limit?
I think this is a personal decision to be made by a woman and her medical providers and her family.
And you're a doctor yourself.
I am a doctor.
Okay,
Yes.
well, that's great. So we have a medical professional in the room. I'm asking the medical professional in the room who would like our vote for president, what is her position since she would be our president? What is the position that she would be promoting?
Bodily autonomy for women, and in conjunction with their medical providers. My role as doctor and as president is to ensure that everybody has access to quality health care.
Right. So if a female walked into your office at 36 weeks and said, "Yeah, I think I want an abortion now," what would your position be? How that should be handled?
So I'm not an obstetrician, so I cannot give you the standards for the practice, but my understanding is that a late-term abortion is not performed unless the mother's life is at risk. That's not hard and fast. It's not written in stone as far as I understand, but it's extremely, my understanding, again, not as an obstetrician, but my understanding is that it's extremely rare and requires extenuating circumstances for abortions to be performed at that late stage. That's my understanding.
Right. My thing is about your policy. What your policy would be? What would your policy?
My policy is that I have confidence in our board certified healthcare professionals, and I have confidence in women's autonomy and their ability to make the best decisions for themselves and their families, together with their medical providers, which they must have access to. And to me, that is where the focus needs to be, on ensuring that everyone has access, not only to quality healthcare late in pregnancy, but quality healthcare before they get pregnant. Let me just say, I think that reproductive healthcare includes birth control. It also includes autonomy and the right to choose before one is in a position of having an unintended pregnancy.
So basically, if a woman says, "I don't want to be a mother, I'm 36 weeks along, I've decided me and the father are not going to work out, and I don't want to be a mother, so can we have an abortion?" Would Jill Stein's policy be that that's an acceptable reason for her to go to the doctor? Or is your policy that, well, I'll leave that scenario between her and the doctor? Or would it be that would not be acceptable?
My policy, I think government should not be in the business of defining people's reproductive destiny. That needs to be decided by a woman, her family, and her medical provider, defining what the acceptable medical choices are given her state of health, her state of pregnancy,
okay,
etc.
Just want to make sure we have a clear understanding of, what the policy would be as opposed to a hypothetical. So just make sure we have a clear understanding of that. In that vein, I'm sure you're aware as a medical professional historically, Margaret Sanger and the eugenics movement starting all of this here, and the fact that there's an abortion clinic in every black neighborhood practically. We don't have grocery stores, but there's an abortion clinic within a mile of you. And that was government policy too. Do you see that when you talk about abortion and government policy, do you see that as an issue that, by the way, that's kind of been weaponized specifically where the black community is concerned? Do you think it's been weaponized?
Well, currently women don't have access to abortion. So if there's, and especially poor women. So if abortion has been weaponized in this country, it's being weaponized against poor women and black women who do not have access to life-saving procedures. And this is why we are seeing perinatal mortality going up in a very scary and frightening way. So if the issue is being weaponized right now, it is being weaponized on the side of denying essential reproductive health care, including abortions, to poor women and black women. So yes, absolutely. This issue is being weaponized, but it's not being weaponized at the moment in favor of, killing off black babies before they're born. That's not what's happening right now. Is there the potential? Of course, there always is. And this is why it's so important to ensure that women have choice and that they are not forced by virtue of poverty, by virtue of just oppression, by lack of opportunity. They are not forced into having abortions. They are not forced into unintended or unwanted pregnancies. We need to define choice through justice, through quality education, through good schools. Another thing we call for example, along those lines, is raising the floor so that the quality of your school doesn't depend on your zip code. We want to see equitable funding across the whole country so that you don't have to live in a fancy, high class white community in order to have a good education. There should be equal funding and equal quality ensured for African American communities and Hispanic and everyone across the board. That needs to be provided as a matter of course. That's how we ensure equity, and we ensure that there is not an effort to practice eugenics against the African American people. We need to ensure that up front.
Okay, so what I'm saying though is that you don't feel that that's kind of the policy here is directed Black women disproportionately, hideously disproportionately towards aborting their children, first by force and coercion, now by persuasion.
Well, if that persuasion is going on, I'm not seeing it. And to look at policies, for example, poor women have been denied abortions for decades, through the Hyde Amendment, which prevents poor women from being able to access abortions. So, it's a mixed bag. That's not to say there isn't.
We've had over 80 million for Black society alone. We've had over 80 million.
Well, and let me just say, I think that has everything to do with the economic hardships that are imposed on that community. Because how can you have a child when you do not have secure housing, when you don't have quality education, and you do not have access to a good income? Yeah, but the oppression is much bigger than the abortion rate. The abortion rate is a reflection of wider economic racism and economic white supremacy. So we've got to address it at that level. It's not enough to just say, oh, let's prevent abortions and inflict incredible chaos, pain, and suffering on the lives of any woman who's poor, who cannot afford to have a child. People should not be in that position in the first place.
Well, I guess the thing that we kind of bristle at is that that's never suggested, for example, for the immigrant females coming across the border, neither in their home countries nor here. No one really says, hey, you got kids, you look pregnant over there, Maria. Have you considered an abortion? That's what I mean by when I say persuasion. That's not presented to them at a doctor's office or a school or television or anything. Hey, this would cure that. It's like come across the border with your kids and make sure you have them. So when we talk about persuasion, that's what we mean. That's not something that's directed to us.
I will say that I have heard about hysterectomies being performed in the migrant prisons, that women have been subjected to hysterectomies without their consent and without their permission. So,
okay,
I think
for the sake of those listening there tonight, I'm aware of that story there. For the sake of those listening, there's been different information out there. So if the doctor is listening right now, yeah, we're aware. That's a case that folk want to look into. Yeah, there have been some details matter, though. That guy's going around suing folk. So details matter. So definitely make sure you all check into that. That's a very important thing to keep in mind. That's a good point for me to end here. I got one more question I want to ask. Well, one more thing I want to think. And thank you very much for being so gracious with your time. That's been important here as well. I was a child when Ted Kennedy primaried Jimmy Carter. So I was a little kid. I remember I was in high school when Ross Perot ran against Bush Elder, Ralph Nader 2000, 2016. What do you say to the people who say Jill Stein is just trying to be a spoiler? This is no good. You're going to hand the election to Trump. I talked to Ajamu Baraka about this when I interviewed him for my documentary 7 years ago. Now I get to talk to you directly. What do you say to the people who said it's your fault Hillary Clinton lost in 2016? If you hadn't run, she would have been president and we never would have had to deal with Donald Trump, and that it would have been better to have Clinton than Trump. What does Jill Stein say to that indictment of her running for president?
Well, I challenge that smear on all fronts. Donald Trump, is a flagrant racist and a demagogue and a very dangerous person. Hillary Clinton is a warmonger, and a what should we say? A liberal who practices her own forms of discrimination in perhaps more covert ways. I do not accept that fascism is strictly the province of the Democrats. We've got cop cities right now. We have incredible police abuse and mass incarceration and violence being wreaked on the African-American community, and increasingly on, college students who are simply standing up to say, stop the genocide. They're getting their heads bashed in and are being blacklisted and thrown out of college. We've got 80 cop cities being built right now across the country, and many of them are under Democratic municipal administration. So, and we have a reactivated draft. And by the way, your children, your grandchildren, whatever, everyone, all males are currently being registered for the draft, whether you know it or not. You don't have to go register for it. You're automatically there. And if Joe Biden, who says now he's sending the first boots on the ground, in addition to 5,000 sailors with each of the aircraft battle groups there are now two of them that are sitting, one off the coast of Iran, the other one off the coast of Israel, on standby, and Israel and Iran are about to go at it, and we could be on the brink of World War III, and that draft could be turned on, with a turnkey right now. All the conditions are there, and they're coming for you, and they know where you are. So I'd say we have plenty of reasons for concern right now, and that's not just limited to Donald Trump. Who is it who's been leading the charge right now for genocide and for the suppression of our civil liberties, for our right to protest, our rights of free speech? They are cracking. They're cracking heads right now in no subtle way. And that's happening under Democrats who are leading the charge. That's not to say Republicans aren't right there along with them, but it is Democrats who are leading the charge on these traditional greater evil, issues. And in my view, there is no lesser evil in this race. We've got two greater evils. It's the American people who are demanding other choices, and in our race in 2016, we know very well from polling, as well as just from talking to people, that people who came out to vote Green would otherwise not have come out to vote. So we did not in any way actually contribute to Donald Trump's victory and Hillary Clinton's loss. Those are lies and misinformation. But in any event, Americans have a right to choose. And our elections are about competition. And the problem of a potentially split vote can be solved through a system called ranked choice voting. It already lives in 25 cities. The state of Maine has it. The Democrats don't want that because they want to be able to extort your vote. They want to be able to fear campaign and smear campaign. They could solve the abortion crisis right now. They rant and rave about how
with military bases.
Exactly. Military bases or other federal land, it could be built right now. They don't have to watch the death rate of pregnant Black women skyrocket from this denial of abortion care.
Speaking of Black women, I want to ask you about that in conjunction with the election. How does Jill Stein feel as an outside observer, since you're not running as a Democrat, but since you're aware of the process, how do you feel as an outside observer of how this situation happened with Joe Biden bowing out? Not the circumstances in which he was pushed out. Obviously, Nancy Pelosi and Barack Obama behind the scenes said, you got to go. And amazingly, for probably a first in American history, they overthrew an American president without killing him, and then installed Kamala Harris as the candidate who did not receive a single vote from a single citizen. I'm curious how Jill Stein feels about that particular scenario, briefly.
I think it is another symbol of, democracy on its last legs here in this country. The Democrats have not held a primary. a true primary in quite a while. They have been rigging their primary, shall we say, at least since 2016 and arguably before that as well. But certainly since 2016, the election was really manipulated. The Democratic primary was manipulated. And in court, the DNC, the Democratic National Committee, said that they had a right to manipulate that the primary, and that the candidate would basically be the choice of the Democratic National Committee, which is a very rigged and stacked committee. So the Democratic Party should be renamed the Anti-Democratic Party. Kamala Harris herself is a reflection of that, because she won't go on record where she stands. She is campaigning with the daughter of Dick Cheney, and they have welcomed Dick Cheney with open arms, and she says that she'll be different from Joe Biden. How? Because she will appoint a Republican to the cabinet. She will have a bipartisan advisory committee, and she won't take a stand. She has backpedaled from the progressive positions that she once took. She's a cop. She's a cop, and she has fought to, in her term as Attorney General, she fought to extend the prison sentences of prisoners in order to exploit their labor. She refused to allow DNA evidence, exculpatory evidence for a prisoner on death row. She refused for that to be allowed. Eventually it was forced in, but she did her best to keep it out. This is not a person of integrity. This is not someone who is representing, struggling people, African Americans, low income people. This is not someone who is serving our interests. And she has basically refused to take positions, to take a stand. There's very little on her website, and she keeps changing, her tune in any event. So yeah, I'd say her being anointed, to be the candidate of the party is another symbol that democracy, certainly in the Democratic Party, but also in the Republicans, there's no question about that. But democracy is on its last legs in these two political parties that are bought and paid for by Wall Street and the war machine. People can check out our campaign, which is a people-powered campaign. We don't take the money from billionaires. You cannot sit down and write $1 million check to our campaign, but you can to all the others. So that's who's calling the shots. We are a small donor campaign. We are of, by, and for regular, everyday people who have really critical needs. We're all being thrown under the bus and have been for decades. It's time that we stand up. Go to jillstein2024.com and check out the alternative.
Well, I think that's a great note there. One last question for myself personally about I think bodily autonomy is an important thing when you bring up Joe Biden and the possibility of the draft. Do you also support the right to choose for men also?
The right to choose in terms of
women have the right to have bodily autonomy to choose whether they become mothers. No one has ever protected a man's right to choose or not choose become a father. Not only consensually, but even non-consensually. We have literally had courts say that a man can be forced to become a father non-consensually. For example, as you may have heard, or maybe you didn't, the NBA and NFL told their players, make sure you don't leave used condoms around, because a woman can take it out of the garbage, impregnate herself, and you will now be held liable. And court cases have upheld that. So I just wanted to, just for my own personal edification, that's my last question. I'm just curious, when we talk about the right to choose and bodily autonomy, and especially if you don't want to become a parent also, I've never heard anybody articulate or even say that they support a man's right to choose. And we're talking about non-consensually being given birth. How about non-consensually being made a parent as a man? If that happened with a female, there would be bonfires in the streets. And yet this happens to men and it doesn't even get mentioned, or it gets downplayed or diminished or dismissed altogether. I'm just curious where Jill Stein comes down on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think we could talk about this for a long time, but, what is it that the man is not consenting to? Is he not consenting to, to having sexual intercourse? Well, he probably consented, to have sexual relations such that, a pregnancy could be, condoms fail all the time. Do you get your money back if the condom fails?
Right, but if somebody drags your genetic material out of a garbage can and impregnates themselves into that scenario.
So what the question there is about, the obligations of paternity, as opposed to, the fact of conceiving a child. And I think legally those are separate questions. so that the obligations of fatherhood are complex. And, what did he not consent to? Did he not consent to have sexual relations?
He didn't consent to he didn't consent to somebody taking his genetic material out of a garbage can, which obviously means to be discarded, and then impregnating themselves with it and claiming he's now obligated to something that his actions clearly show he had no intention of following through. So this is like somebody continuing the sex act without your consent.
Yes. Yeah. Right. Right. So someone proceeding to parenthood without the consent of the father. That's an interesting question. And I think there's a case to be made that that should not be permitted without the father's consent. But it's a complex legal question, and I wouldn't try to answer it on the fly, but I think it deserves to be heard.
Well, I think it's something that needs to be opened up for a conversation as well, because I think this will be something we'll see more going forward. Well, Ms. Stein, I want to thank you very much for joining us here tonight. You have been extremely gracious in answering all of our questions. I don't think that there's anybody who has any ambiguity about your positions or your stances on these things. Please go ahead and give everyone your website and how they can get to your campaign if they wish to contribute, and certainly if they want to vote for you.
Great. Thank you so much. And it's been great talking with you. And thanks for, just laying all these issues out and helping inform me about some of the subtleties that, I was not aware of. So really appreciate the conversation. You can go to my website, jillstein2024.com. Getting the word out is really important. When we went on, along with my running mate, Butch Ware, when we went on the Breakfast Club, people were entirely unaware of who we were, and so many were persuaded that we are the campaign that really represents the interests of everyday people, including particularly African Americans who are being, really widely thrown under the bus and whose needs are not being met and who get all kinds of promises and those promises go unfulfilled. So I encourage people to watch The Breakfast Club and also go to our website, again, jillstein2024.com. You can make a contribution. You can sign up to volunteer, because as a grassroots campaign, it is flyering, it is phone banking, it's getting the word out to your network through social media, etc. If you sign up to volunteer, we can provide you with materials and scripts and flyers and stuff like that, because, this is a guerrilla campaign and it does appear to be catching fire. People are rightly very worried about where our warmongering, president and both candidates will be taking us, with the potential for World War III could be breaking out tomorrow, and the draft is hovering over us. We can stop this, and the more support for our campaign, the more support we have for stopping this train, which is leaving the station right now. I mean, it has already left the station on genocide and endless war. This is impoverishing us, it's endangering us, and it is a direct threat, to our most basic civil liberties and civil rights here in this country. So,
well, Jill Stein can say something that none of the other candidates can actually say. She has actually come to talk to us. So if the rest of the parties would do that, we'd have a better democracy automatically right off of that alone. Thank you so much, ma'am, for joining us. We appreciate that, and hopefully we'll get to talk again. All right, brothers and sisters around the world, that was our interview with Jill Stein, candidate for president. For those of you who say, Jason, you need to talk to her, you need to talk to her. Over an hour of being able to speak to her here. So that was the interview. From here, you make your choices. I haven't tried to prejudice anything. My job is to make sure that you get the answers straight out. Folks don't get to dodge them. I believe you got the answers you were looking for in that regard. So if she is appealing to you, you can go in that direction. You've got all the information that you need at this point to make that decision, if that's the decision that you're going to make. So that's what this is all about, is making sure that all of your options are made fully available to you. And now they are. So, I want to thank everyone here, by the way. Like I say, we were doing this, we've been doing a lot here, but I want to thank everyone who has contributed to tonight's program. PayPal, Super Chat, Venmo. We had a bunch of y'all here in the Super Chat, so thank you to all of you. Thank you to all of you on PayPal and everything else. This is the foremost outlet. I am your anchor man, and this is the New Black Media. We're going to take a very brief non-commercial break. When we come back, I'm going to go ahead and see about taking your phone calls. This is the Black Channel.
Is your child struggling in school? Wish there was a way to get them the extra help they need? Mr. B, the teacher, is available for online tutoring on both tutor.com and varsitytutors.com platforms. He can help your child in a variety of subjects and is passionate about making learning fun and effective. And for even more learning tips, check out his book, Guidelines for the Successful Student, now available on amazon.com. For more information or to reach him directly, go to mrbtheteacher.com today.
Order yours today to experience all the benefits of Ash Kickin' Body Butter. With skin so smooth and soft, you'll thank us for it. Shop Ash Kickin' online. That's ASHKICKIN.com.
Hi, this is Brenda Starr, creator of Poetry with a Purpose and author of the book Pressed But Not Crushed. Pressed But Not Crushed is an anthology of political poems that address current and historical issues in American descendants of slave population and African American population. The book describes slaveries and its residuals, Jim Crow segregation, social depredation, and other relevant issues to American descendants of slaves and African Americans, including the current political climate that does not address our issues.
This is the Black Channel. I am your host, your brother, your humble servant, the Black Authority. Very glad to be with you all here this evening. We don't ask the usual run-of-the-mill questions here. We ask the real questions. There's a reason that other campaigns would not speak to us, not because we ask anything outrageous, but specifically because, you ain't supposed to ask nothing sensible. You're supposed to ask crazy stuff. You're supposed to ask boring stuff. No, let's ask a few real questions and deal with that. So definitely you have that made available to you here as well. Let me go ahead and put the link to the Zoom here at the top of the chat room. So if you wish to speak to us here, the Zoom link is now available, so you can go ahead and jump on the line with me here as well. We can go ahead and talk about that if you all don't want to. If you're talked out at this point, you think you've heard everything and you have no comment to give about it, that's perfectly fine here as well. I think a lot has been covered in that regard. I took a look through you all's comments, particularly my channel members. By the way, for those of you who are members of the channel, there was a separate post put up that only you could see. So I think I dealt with pretty much most of all of what you all there wanted. I also covered a few things that the general population here on the channel wanted to have as well. So this is interactive radio, and we give you the opportunity to go ahead and speak those things and say those things. And we're the only outlet that does that. You know full well if they're talking to Bowling Ball Martin, this, how much do you like Kamala? It'll be something like that. So we are the place that has real conversations about these things, and a lot of folk may not be happy at this moment. It's not our job here. Well, Jason, why do you have to talk to her? Because it's not our job to win an election for anybody. It's the candidate's job to win the election for themselves. Kamala Harris needs to win it for herself like anybody else. Jill Stein and Ajamu Baraka did not cost Hillary Clinton the election. Hillary Clinton cost Hillary Clinton the election. And that's what Jill Stein did not say. Now I can go back to giving my opinion. Jill Stein and Ajamu Baraka did not take a thing from Hillary Clinton. They didn't cost her the election. Hillary Clinton cost Hillary Clinton the election. The candidate has to run on their own. If the candidate chooses to avoid their constituency and evade their constituency and just assume their constituency is going to show up for them like lemmings, then that candidate takes a hell of a gamble. That's the way that goes. All right, let's go ahead and jump over here on Zoom. We'll go ahead and take some calls here. I don't require you to show everybody. I'm not going to put you all on screen, but I do want to make sure that you have your cameras and your microphones on, just so we can make sure we don't have any trolling issues. Very, very important in that regard. So we have Amanisa on Zoom here. Amanisa, I need your camera and your microphone on for me. You got 5 seconds or permanent vacation. Folks, everybody on Zoom, I'm not putting you up in front of everybody else to see you, but I need to make sure we can see you just so we don't have any trolling issues. 5 seconds, Anissa, or permanent vacation. I'm sorry, 2 seconds or permanent vacation. All right, Anissa, permanent vacation. Let's go ahead and get over here to iPhone 8. And you can go ahead and be up here next. All right, I got iPhone 8 on the line here. Let me find out here. Okay, what's your name, brother?
Aaron.
All right, Aaron's got his Zimbabwe broadband going. All right, Aaron, what's on your mind?
Can you hear me?
Go ahead, sir.
Oh man.
Can
you hear me?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah, a great interview, man, and that was big to have a candidate like her on to ask her the questions so we can better familiarize ourselves with her. The only thing I knew about her was that she was pushing for reparations, and that and that sounded good, but it was good to see her live and answer questions on the spot. And it kind of let me know the people that she have in her corner are somewhat not prepping her to be more in depth. The question about reparations and lineage and how, she said at first that's what it was going to be, nothing but lineage. But then she got to talking with other people and getting other input. And now her stance is not as solid as she said it was in the beginning. That was a red flag for me. It definitely needs to start with lineage. And from there, you know what I'm saying?
Well, it's certainly important why we would be able to talk to people so you all can get a bit more background on why they're saying these things. And I give her credit for at least doing that, because Kamala Harris won't go that far, or she'll just make sure she talks to people who won't ask that. So it does give us a bit more of an insight into why you all may have heard or seen some of the things that you heard or saw. And that just goes into your repertoire of information for you to consider, when you're looking over candidates. So I just thought that I'm just doing my job to make sure I ask the thorough questions and have a thorough investigation of it to find out why people are saying what they're saying. And now you all can make your own decision. Thank you very much for giving us a call tonight. Let me go ahead and see if I can get Audra up here on Zoom. Let me get Audra on Zoom here. Hopefully Audra's not calling in with her Kenyan broadband. We'll see how that goes. Audra, we'll try to get her up here. Audra looks a little bit familiar in that regard. Okay, Audra, let's go ahead and get that going. There you go. All right, well, you look familiar. Hello, Audra.
Hey, Jason, how you doing?
Well, I guess your phone calls worked.
It was a heavy lift that I wasn't expecting to be as heavy as it was. I'm glad that she was on. And I appreciate some of her answers, though. I think because it's a lot of Green Party members that are doing heavier lifts in other areas, and I'm one of those Green Party members that are working on the reparation, the platform planks, to change the language from reading specifically for descendants of American chattel slavery to say American freedmen. There's a lot of language. I'm right now, I just wrote the platform plank for the Green Party of California, and we're submitting it. We'll be reviewing it. It's a huge, and she's right, it's a huge debate because there's a lot of Pan-Africans that joined the Green Party, and they're throwing their weight around. John Mubaraka does not believe that lineage-based reparations should be a thing. But our American freedmen, my strategy is this: if we go ahead, join the Green Party, take over at the county level, run at the local levels. Myself, I'm on my city's planning commission. I'm very active, if we take over the Green Party as American freedom, there's a lot of things that the Green Party has already done, and I don't want to say take over. I'm saying take over, really us, turn the Green Party black. Like these Pan-Africans, just get them out the paint. I don't know. they have a lot that they worry about, but we have a lot that we worry about too. And I don't really hear the Pan-Africans in the Green Party that say a lot for us. So I do a lot of talking, and I'm trying to get as many of us to join. But after tonight and attempting to help with the preparation and all of that, and with an understanding that I'm pushing up against the John Barakas in the party as just little old me.
I think he's going to carry considerably more weight. So that's if you're going to try to go up against somebody like that, that's going to be formidable. I'll just say it like that. So you have good intentions,
I do.
but you know he's got a huge head start on you. So with that being the case, that's kind of a climb uphill in that regard. But I hope that we were able to answer the questions you might have been looking for.
I mean, I didn't really have a lot of questions because I know the platform had been with the Green Party since 2016, right? And for me, it's just, with respect to what happened here in California with CLBC and all that craziness, as a party, we need to reach out to my community more. And I'm calling us to the carpet right now. I'm just like, hey, if you don't start if you don't start rocking with us the way I need you to rock with us, I'm walking out the door. Like, this is literally going to be my last election cycle with the Green Party. We've got to get it together. Like I as a Green Party member do feel like we could spend a whole lot more time educating each other ourselves. Like we don't call each other African Americans anymore. We're American freedmen. We've done a lot of lineage tracing, heavy showing up in lots of different places.
It's new. The thing is that this is new and it is a change for folks, but also because there are a lot of folks there who specifically what you're finding out is that is their position. Their position is I can't even really call it Pan-Africanism. It's like Neo-Pan-Africanism is what it is. Because true Pan-Africanism, if we were the only ones practicing that, if everyone were practicing true Pan-Africanism, it wouldn't be an issue. So you don't have that going on. And they use that as a cloak to bring in other agendas. And what you find out is what the other agendas are when you say, hey, what are you exactly defining as Pan-Africanism? That's the kind of thing that jumps out at people. Thank you very much for giving us a call, nice sister. We appreciate that. Let me get, see if I can get iPhone Aaron. iPhone. Okay, there's somebody else on here. All right, let me wait for him to get his audio here going. All right, brother. Why he looking like Mr. Brown? What's on your mind, Alan? Mr. Allen? Okay, he's trying to figure out this newfangled technology. Okay, I'll give him a moment here to see if he can get that together, but otherwise we're going to have to move on. All right, Mr. Allen, not really sure what's going on there. He is, sir, you are already on. All you have to do is talk. Okay, y'all, he is looking like your old uncle up there. This is newfangled technology to him. All right, let's go ahead and see if we can get Javon up here. Javon. Let me go ahead and see if we can get Javon up here. All right, Javon, we got you on the line here. We got Javon on the line and waiting for his audio to connect for him. There you go. All right, Javon, what's on your mind?
Hey, it is an honor to join you on your broadcast. Thank you, sir, for having the intelligence to ask the proper questions to a candidate that we may want to consider.
Well, like I say, they're the run-of-the-mill questions, the usual questions that folk ask because they were given to them by their media companies. Well, I am the media company. But furthermore, I'm not looking to get a TV deal, a cable television contract, a record deal. I'm not looking to get signed anywhere. I belong to you all. I serve the people. I'm accountable only to the people here, which is an incredible amount of freedom to have, by the way. You all are the only ones I'm accountable to. There's not somebody waving a bag at me talking about, well, if you ask it, but don't ask that right there because you might lose your job or we won't give you a promotion. Damn you, your job and your promotion. I'm fine down here in the soil where I'm at. Now let me ask these questions I need to. And y'all make your decisions from there.
And thank you very much for asking those questions because they are needed. The other question I would have is Just I've noticed in your other broadcast you said you only need 5% of the black vote. I wonder, has Barack Obama swayed enough people away from Kamala Harris? And two, that doesn't necessarily mean that we need to vote for Trump. I think that you were brilliant in asking the questions because I'm still waiting to see what candidate is going to offer something solely for the FBA, descendant of slaves, the genre you might want to put us in.
All I'm going to say is vote your conscience. The only wasted vote is voting for someone you don't actually believe in because you're continuing to empower them. So vote your conscience. If you think that Kamala Harris has done great things for us, I'm not here to try to bam you into convincing you she hasn't. I'm just going to articulate, okay, what has she done? And because she's the incumbent. Likewise, if somebody comes to me and says, we need to vote for Trump, and we've had a couple of people call me up with that. Y'all saw I gave them the same thing. I gave them the same heat. Well, what has he done? Ooh, you thought I was right-winger. No, I'm not a white right-winger. I'm a black-winger. So what has he done for us? And I'll go from there. So everybody got to carry the same load. What you find out is if you're actually objective, neither one of them's carrying the load. Neither one of them. It's just that simple. But that's my position on it. I think that's most of y'all's position on it. And from here, just going forward, all I say to you is, well, Jason, what's your position to me? Vote your conscience. Whatever. My only thing to say to you is that the only wasted vote is someone you don't actually believe in. If you don't actually believe in them, it's better for you to vote because you're not going to win them all no way. Think about that for a few moments. If you voted for, let's just say you supported Trump. If you voted for him in 2020, you lost. Was that a wasted vote? Would you have anybody say that was a wasted vote in 2020 because their candidate didn't win? Likewise, if Biden had lost, would those people be saying it's a wasted vote? None of the Hillary Clinton people are saying it's a wasted vote. They're not happy they didn't win, but they're not saying, damn, I should have voted for Trump because Clinton wasn't going to win. You see what I mean? No, they stood. Right. You stand by your position. It would have been a waste of a vote for you to say, I'm voting for the winner. This is not a football game, contrary to how they've conditioned people to think about it. This is not a sport. You're not a mascot for a team. You're supposed to, this is very, very serious. So vote your conscience. And if you don't believe in this person, you better not vote for him because here's the crazy thing. What if you vote for him and they win and you didn't actually believe in them? Now there's the worst scenario of all. I didn't actually think they was going to win. I'll be damned. Now I've given them power. Because that's happened too, by the way. I'll let you have the last word.
Just want to say thank you for giving us talking points, being brilliant, and having enough courage to do what you do, because I know it's probably not an easy life for you, having the courage to step out on blackness and live on it. So be one and thank you.
Thank you very much for giving us a call tonight, brother. We appreciate that. Let me go ahead and see if I can get Lynn up here. Let's see if we can go ahead and get Lynn up here on Zoom. By the way, thank you to everyone who's contributed to support tonight's program on PayPal, Super Chat, Venmo. Thank you to all of you there. Don't have time to go down the list of names here tonight. Unfortunately, here, we got a lot going on, but I want to thank all of you here for this. So that's a big up to you. Lynn, I'm going to give you 5 seconds here to get your camera and your microphone on for me here. Everybody who's on Zoom, make sure you have that on there, or permanent vacation. So, Lynn, let me go ahead and help Lynn out of the chat room there. Folks, if you're on Zoom, all I ask is make sure that you have your camera and your microphone turned on for us. That's all I ask. I'm not going to put you up on the big screen there necessarily. I just need you to go ahead and make sure you have that on so we don't have any trolling issues. Very, very important there. All right, let's go ahead and see if we can crack down here on 71 Pan. 71 Pan. We're waiting for them to go ahead and get theirs up and going for us here as well. Hopefully they are not on their Ethiopia broadband. Just waiting for them to go ahead and get that going. So they might be on the bottom bunk tonight. They might be contacting us from San Quentin Correctional Institution. So just in case they're trying to get their signal through the concrete walls from the bottom bunk. 71 Pan, I'm giving him an opportunity to pull off the Shawshank Redemption. He might have to go to the showers and lean by the window. Okay, 71 Pan is having trouble there, so maybe give us a call back next week. Let me go ahead and see if I can get Harag up here, Harag. Harag, wake up. Let's go ahead and get Harag on here. Harag. There you go. All right, Harag, go ahead and turn off your speakers, please. Turn off your speakers for us. All right, Harag, let me see. Back up your camera for me for a moment. Thank you very much. We appreciate that. All right, why is he looking like Big Bud from today? All right, brother, what's on your mind?
First of all, I want to say good evening, Jason. And I really want to give Jill, props to her for even coming on your show. Because she's coming against, a sharp mind and a sharp tongue.
He's new around here, y'all. Don't worry. Go ahead.
But one thing I want to say, too, is, I liked when you discussed a subject with her, you stopped her and kind of didn't let her run off with the conversation like many politicians do. One thing that I want to say I noticed from her, many of the subjects you guys talked about, was that she had a lot to say about the border, abortions. But sometimes when you would push back on her on reparations, she just didn't have a prepared speech like she would for other questions, which kind of gives me the inkling that she just didn't have a true passion about reparations.
Well, I think it's more that they don't get asked about it. You go talk to Charlemagne and he's not in link with what the movement is. You're talking to a guy who has passing familiarity. He doesn't know how to drill down. He doesn't have any questions to drill down with. Do you support reparations? Oh, good. Next. So you're talking to a bunch of folks from corporate media outlets who at best they are unknowledgeable, or at worst they play dumb because they don't want to really get involved in it because this goes places. So if you're beholden to the New York market, you probably gonna bristle when we start talking about lineage based. Because you think about, all the Dominicans and Puerto Ricans and everything else. I mean, do I want to step off into that? Meanwhile, you only represent about 1% of the country. What about the other 99% of us? Mm-hmm. What about us? So I'm here to talk to about the 99%. Charlemagne's here to talk to the 1%. Okay, cool. You do that. I'm here to talk to the other 99. So that's why the questions sound different and go differently, just because we all know what the first question is going to be. Or usually the question would be, do you support reparations? You notice that I asked, how do you define it? So it's like, they don't usually start there. Yeah. Let's get straight to it. How do you define reparations? Go. So you have a different conversation going because this is what it means to have your own black media. Yeah, you hear a bunch of questions and a bunch of answers you don't hear anywhere else. We used to have that 60 years ago. We lost it when they all got co-opted. So if you want to know why we sound different, it's nice and refreshing to have your own media that actually asks some real questions and you get some real answers. That's nice.
And, one other thing that I really kind of noticed about her solutions for problems were very surface level, but, for instance, like she would bring up how Haitians are coming across the border, and how there's gang violence there. But, there's actual known Gilbert Biggio, who has Canadian sanctions. He owns the port out there who's funneling the guns to these Haitians to wage war on each other. There's no depth at actually getting to the true solution of things, because I think a lot of those true solutions would be pointing at people at the top.
Yeah, when you get into the weeds and the details of these things, there's a lot going on. That's why it's imperative for us to be informed. It's not enough to just ask these questions and, quote, get a response. We got to be informed, man. We have to be informed. It does no good to have candidates get up in front of you and talk to you if you don't even know what the issue is. If you don't even know what you're being asked about, or if you're not fully informed about what your position is, you shouldn't be against something just to be against it. You should know why you're against it or why you're for it. Because there's a lot of silliness out there. We got folk out there who, they make deals and don't even know why. They make votes and don't even know why. They're doing things and you're just going along. Obama showed up, let me vote. You can't even tell me I'm backing Kamala because Trump is racist. Okay, but that's a negative for Trump. But what's the plus for her? She's not him. That's not a reason you vote for someone. You don't vote for them because they're not the other person. You vote for them for who they are, not who they aren't. So that's our responsibility. We have to know why we're asking for a vote. We have to have an agenda of our own so that we actually know what we're voting for, not people trick bagging us into constantly voting against something.
And that's why I really loved how you brought up abortions, because, for me, I think that's a a major thing in my eyes. You know, I think there's way too many Black babies that are being killed for decades. And I love how you brought the number up to her of that, 42% of our babies are the ones being killed in abortions. And she tried to say that, we don't have access to abortions. I mean, I loved how after that you brought up the number of abortions Black people have had.
And that sounds like plenty of access to me. We can't get doctor's care for cancer, but you can get an abortion like you can get a bag of Doritos. So what are we talking about here?
I agree. And you go to some of these small towns, I've kind of traveled and lived many places, but you go to a small town that's predominantly white, there's people picketing in front of abortion clinics from the minute it opens to the minute it closes. I've never seen that in any major urban city in my whole life. So the access is there. There's no shaming to it as well. I think that's a huge thing for me is, we should be raising our children, not killing off our children, no matter how hard it is, no matter if she says that it's because of economic situations. We had worse economics a century ago when we weren't killing babies like this. So she seemed like those excuses just mean nothing to me anymore. I'm sorry to ramble on.
Well, thank you very much for giving us a call tonight. We appreciate that. And like I say, folks, it's very refreshing to actually have a media outlet that asks your questions as opposed to bowling ball questions and ass-kissing questions. No, anybody who says that they are, I'm here to get your vote, I'm for you. Okay, well, let's go ahead and get straight to those questions by the way, one more thing. Without fear of offending anyone. Roland Martin is scared to offend Obama and them. Yeah, put them on the spot. I don't care who it is. Trump, Obama, Stein, anybody. If our questions are putting you on the spot, then I know what's going on behind closed doors. This is the issue we have. Folks smiling in our faces, and then behind closed doors, here comes the trick bag. Nah, let's get this out here in front. Let me find out, because if you can't answer my questions here directly, if we got a problem here, I know what you're going to do behind closed doors. Let's just stop playing dumb and acting like, that ain't really what's going to happen. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. So let's go ahead and avoid that part of it. These other people who have ulterior motives, they're trying to get a job and get a gig. We're not trying to do that. I'm just trying to get to the truth. Let me go ahead and jump back over here on Zoom and see if we can get Eric up here on Zoom. I'll give him a few moments here. All right, we got Eric on Zoom. What's on your mind, Eric?
Jason Black, what's going on, big dog?
All right, man. Why is he looking like Gerald Levert? All right, what's on your mind, Eric?
Hey, man, did somebody say reparations? Come on, what else? Where we signed up? Wait a minute, where's the paperwork? Where you got your pen? I'm sold. What? I'm getting off the couch.
Well, like I say, they're heading in the right direction for you, I suppose. So, if it was satisfactory for you, that's up to you.
Hey, Klansmen, did you say reparations? Feminists? Did you say reparations? Okay, let me get you to sign this real quick, because man, if we locking these people down on what they say, let's do it, baby. I need my money. I need it bad. And look, don't ask me what I'm gonna do with my money. Don't get in my way of my money. Give me my motherfucking money, baby. I want it and I need it. And we close, brother. We closer than we ever had. And this the key to it, man. All of these people, I ain't never seen so many sickly white supremacists in my life. 30 years ago, yeah, they were all strong and could hold that cross up, and burn it and all this stuff and can do all these things. Man, these people, you could push them down now, brother. Listen, I'm going to talk to the candidates again. Donald Trump, man, I don't know, man. You're not saying nothing. I'm going to use your words. What do you got to lose? Kamala Harris. I want to use your words again, but see, I'm gonna manipulate the words a little bit. You think I'm not gonna do something for Black people to get them off the couch? Yeah, I am gonna do something for Black people, just specifically for them. That's what hey, baby, y'all got to talk right. Time is ticking, and these people are understanding that they can win. Come on, baby.
Well, they're also going to be understanding that they can lose. So if everybody doesn't have an agenda, talking around these things is not going to work for them. Thank you very much for giving us a call tonight. Let me get Huey up here on the line. Let me get Huey. All right, we got Huey on the line here. Huey, what's on your mind?
Hey, what's going on, brother? Can you hear me good?
Yes, sir.
All right, brother. Thank you very much for the beautiful broadcast and the good interview. And one thing I do like about your interview, you did not make any smarky remarks. You didn't get, those gotcha moments. You just basically were just doing what the people want and just doing what's needed.
I didn't bring any hot sauce. I didn't bring any collard greens. I didn't ask nobody to dance, barbecue, do the Dougie. Do you wear Converse? Who's your favorite rapper? How you feel about weed? We went straight to the issues. We went straight to the money. Roland Martin told you all it can't just all be economics. Actually, nigga, it can. But,
it can't be economics. But yeah, man, I just want to give you your props, man, for doing that interview. I have to give Jill Stein a little bit of credit. She did. I don't know if she was prompt or whatever, but she came in and just answered whatever questions that they had. Even though some of the questions she didn't really directly answer, but I could tell that she was at least trying to put forth some type of answer to give. So I give her credit on that, but I'm going to give you your props, man. You did everything by answering questions. You didn't bull jive. Even when she tried to push back on some things, she says, nope, here's statistics right here. Here's the dates right here. And to be honest with you, the only thing that turned me off about Jill Stein was closely at the end about the whole man's rights.
Now there's a question you all never heard before, huh? By the way, if we're going to talk about abortion, by the way, for all the media folk out there and whatnot, you want somebody who wants to break this into the mainstream and put this out there and say, okay, you all can no longer say that this is some backwater issue. No, it's front and center now. So there's one you didn't see coming.
Oh, yeah, brother. But anyway, man, I'm going to land my plane. Got to do my security work. You keep up doing the good work, brother. I can't wait for 8 a.m., brother. Keep it up.
Thank you very much for giving us a call here tonight. Like I say, if the old black media were doing what we did here tonight, first of all, Barack Obama never would have either tried what he did or probably wouldn't have gotten to office in the first place. We'd be a whole lot further along than we are. Isn't it great when you don't have a media mouthpiece who can be bought off and ask irrelevant, banal things that you've heard all over again? And by the way, and it didn't take us 3 months to get to the issue now, did it? It took us a couple of minutes. I'll let her go ahead and say her piece, but we really got to the point within a couple of minutes. And that's what you're supposed to do. Let's go ahead and see if I can get Eme up here on Zoom. At least I was clicking for Eme. I don't know what happened to Eme. Eme was there. Now Eme is not there. So not really sure what happened for Eme. All right, Eme is ducked out there a little bit, so we'll have to go ahead and let Eme there go. Let me see who else is out there for this. Okay. Let's go ahead here. There's nothing else going on here, so let's just go ahead and, I think we had a good program here tonight, so I may just go ahead and end it on a good note here, end it on a high note, since we had a good program here tonight. No reason for us to drag it out there. No reason to drag it out there. Okay. James has wanted to get on here. James got in here right when I was closing out Zoom, so we won't be rude about it here tonight. I'll give James 5 seconds to go ahead and get on, unless he's got the Ethiopia broadband going, in which case we'll keep that moving. All right, James, you're on Zoom. What's on your mind, brother?
Hey, how you doing, brother?
Eyes on the road. What's on your mind?
Oh, man. I just wanted to say that thanks for the interview, because I've been listening to it. I'm on my way back from Oklahoma. But when she brought up lineage-based reparations, she said she didn't even know a delineation was going on. But that just pointed out something that y'all been talking about in the new black media about how we got these people that look like us. And this is a big reason we can't get nothing done. How long do you think we've been being undermined before we ever even noticed this, that people look like us were stabbing us in the back? Because when she mentioned lineage, she said that's when she got her pushback and said, oh, I didn't even know that there was a thing against it being lineage-based.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing right there, and especially for those of us, once again, if you don't live in New York, it might be the biggest media market in America, but folks understand New York and LA, that dictates so much of the corporate media and the national political structure, and y'all don't understand that that's actually what's going on. So when you have these political campaigns, yeah, the folks they brought over here are the ones in the room. We're not in the room. The ones they brought over are in the room. And as soon as we start talking like this, all of a sudden you find out what's the conversations that have really been going on and what's really happening in people's ears. So when you have something like that, Allison chick on CNN and whatnot, yeah, there's a reason that happens. So when we show up and it's like, yeah, we're hip to the game now, we want to talk about something different, they don't come out and say it in the public. They're going behind the scenes. Hey, yeah, come here to the side. Let me explain to you what's really going on. No, I'll tell you what's really going on. But yeah, this just uncovers what the real conversations are really going on. And it's not just in the Green Party. This is the Democrats, the Republicans. What you're noticing is, yeah, this is everywhere, man. The culmination of all of this, once again, remember, they started talking about civil rights in 65 and then started talking about immigrants in 69. Think about that for just a few moments. Yeah, this is the culmination of 6 decades of work, and it wasn't unconscious. This was the plan all along.
Yeah, I just want to say to all the non-FBA people out there who keep talking about we being divisive, well, now you had a white woman get up there and confirm something we've been saying that y'all been calling us liars about the whole time. And for those of y'all who participate in calling us liars, and undermining us and calling us names, y'all owe us a public apology. Don't do it in private, do it in public, like when you're calling us Akatas and Sharias and all this other craziness talking about we being divisive and all that. Well, as you say, Jason, if you want to know what a black person think, get a white person to ask the question or say it, and they'll tell you what they really think.
Oh, yeah.
I'm gonna land my point.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for giving us a call tonight. We appreciate that. And one more thing, like I say, I mean, she was being straight with you. She didn't even know what to say to be deceptive. She just being straight. Hey, this is what's going on. I appreciate that. You all know me. I've always appreciated that. Just tell us exactly what it is so we know where we stand. That's the most you have a right to demand. You don't have a right to demand or expect anything more than to know where you stand. Okay, now you know where you stand. Let's go ahead and see if we can get Shabaka up here on Zoom. That is Shabaka, not to be confused with Chewbacca. So Shabaka, let's see if we can get them on Zoom, although Shabaka might be suffering with their Zimbabwe broadband. We'll give Shabaka a couple of more minutes here, and then we're going to move on to LaShawn. So Shabaka, we're waiting for yours to come through there. Okay, Shabaka apparently has left the Serengeti and is unable to get their signal going like it's supposed to be there. Let's go ahead and see if we can do a little bit better with LaShawn. All right, LaShawn, we're waiting for your audio to connect there. I'm waiting for LaShawn's audio to connect. All right, LaShawn, you are on live. What's on your mind?
It's Jesse Paris. I spoke to you about 4 or 5 years ago now. What we just seen displayed was a complete insult to all of our intelligence. I hate when we have to have white people say what we've been saying for the longest. And this broad completely dodged the reparations question. We literally kept telling her, stop calling us African Americans, call us foundational Black Americans, and do something specifically tangible for us. She kept telling us what the problems were, but she didn't tell us what the solution was or what she was going to do about any
Well,
of it.
I do want to say one thing. I understand your feeling about that. I understand your reaction. But in my opinion, I'm not going to dispute you. I'm going to say, in my opinion, she answered the question all right. In my opinion, she did answer it. I don't think there's any ambiguity. In my opinion, as far as I'm concerned, she answered the question all right.
Well, I've dealt with the Green Party here in Colorado. I actually voted for her in 2016 because I couldn't see myself voting for Hillary or the dump. So I gave her a chance in 2016. As we can see, Baraka Ojara, what is his damn name?
Ajamu
Her
Baraka.
vice president pick back then. He's a tether. I got to meet him back in 2018, and he was on that Pan-Africanism scamism back then. So the Green Party don't mean us no good, Black family. I did want to let the audience know though. I am on Team Cornel West. I did get him on the ballot here in the state of Colorado. I actually had a meeting with him.
What makes him any better?
He changed the language from lineage based, not from lineage based, from race based to lineage based. So he did do that after that Black Alpha Network interview, because I did meet with him directly after the Black Alpha Network interview, and I did my best to try to bring him up to code on what the new Black media is talking about and what we're demanding.
Okay, let me go ahead and just say this directly to you all here. For those of you who don't know, let me just go ahead and lay this on the bricks. Cornel West has not shown up with the people he has and has not avoided the people that he has because he doesn't know us. Dr. Cornel West knows exactly who I am. He knows exactly who I am. We've got in touch with him.
Okay.
Cornel West knows exactly who we are. There's a reason you haven't seen him talk to the new Black media folks. It's not accidental. It's not an oversight. I'm just letting it be what it is. Y'all know me. I don't publicly beef with folks, but let me just go ahead and, while we're on the subject tonight, let me just dissuade y'all. Folks, it's not accidental that you haven't seen him. I'm just not going to go round and round about it. The bottom line is, if y'all want to ignore it, I mean, hey, that's up to you, but that's not an accident.
Well,
now he did answer the phone for some other folks. He did show up for the phone for some other smaller people. There's a reason why he's been avoiding the higher level.
He did talk to Black Alpha though, and I do have a direct contact to him. So if you want to get that set up, we can get that set up. If you want to get him on
you're gonna have podcast. I think you're gonna find that to be a very challenging thing. I'm saying this. I'm saying it publicly. If you want to go ahead and do that, go ahead and do that. My email address. My email address is theblackauthority@yahoo.com. If you can go ahead and, it's been a while since he used it, but yeah, go ahead and do that.
I also want to let the B1 family know I'm on the ballot here in the state of Colorado. I'm running for House District 8, which is State House District. I'm number 3 on the ballot, and I'm an independent candidate. So I'm Black first. I got tangibles for the people in my district here in the state of Colorado. So if y'all live in the state of Colorado, what's left of Black Denver, if y'all want to keep whatever is left, y'all definitely want to support me, Jesse, for House District 8. They keep taking my Facebook and YouTubes down. It's straight up election interference by way of these Democrats. As you know, it's a Democratic enclave. The Democrats pretty much run everything here in Colorado, the state, the state house, the locals, and
well, they spent the better part of the last 15 years flooding the zone with illegals out there in Colorado. It is a no man's land, brother. So Denver, Aurora, Converse, all that, it's just and it's a no man's land at this point. That's a very, very uphill fight. That's not a small thing.
Cleansed and gentrified, whatever is left of Black Denver. This is our last stand. Like we've been ethnically cleansed out of what used to be our areas. As you stated back in 2018, though, Colorado's done for Black people. I did not want to believe it. I was determined to prove you wrong, but now I can see it's done data for us out here. So I decided to stop complaining and put my hat in the ring. This is the 3rd time I ran for office. The first time I ran was for city council at large. The second time was for mayor, and now I'm running for state house District 8.
Well, definitely, like I say, everyone, go ahead and check him out. And if you want to get Cornel and West in touch with me, you got my email.
Yes, I have a direct line. I'm one of his electors.
Okay. Well, you got my information, brother. I got Jill. Folks said they want me to talk to Jill Stein. I said, if she actually contacts me, I'll talk to her. There she is. If Cornel actually contacts me, I'll talk to him.
Okay.
I sure will. Thank you very much for giving us a call tonight. Oh, baby, it is what it is. No faking, no fronting, no behind the scenes anything. Jason, say it up front and see if you'll stand on it. I'll say it up front and I'll stand on it. Jason, will you talk to Jill Stein? If she would like to talk, can you talk to her? Can you talk to her? If she contacts me, I'll talk to her. All right. Fine by me. Here she is. Well, Jason, what about Cornell? You know that's gonna be an uphill climb. I can get to. Will you talk to him? I'll talk to him. Sure I will. Sure I will. Absolutely. This is what you have the new black media for. This is what we're for, and this is what we do. We serve the people, and we should. When you have conversations like this, when you actually have somebody who doesn't have an agenda of asking nerfed questions, of avoiding the issues, things go real quick and real smooth. But this is why it happens for other folks, because their media people don't sit up here and load questions and ask softball questions and try to be evasive and avoid the issues and tell you that what you want, what you're focusing on isn't really what you want and isn't really what you're focusing on. Yeah, when it goes a little bit different, there you go. There it goes. Glad to have all of you with us here tonight. We definitely appreciate that. Very brief reminder.
This is Dame Dash with Jason Black.
Hi, I'm Teddy Riley with Jason Black.
My name is Mahmoud Abdurraouf.
Hi, I'm Muggsy Bogues with Jason Black.
This is Jada Kiss with Jason Black.
And Black Channel Films.
With Black Channel Films.
And Black Channel Films.
For Black Channel Films.
8 a.m. Next weekend, New York City. Don't be surprised if we surprised you. It'll be the world premiere of my new documentary film, 8 a.m., taking things to a whole new level, as you can see. I expect you to be there. Washington, D.C. coming right after that. Everyone else, look for your updates. We'll be having some specific conversations about that as well. So if you miss it, I have a very strong suspicion, just like tonight, if you miss the Black Channel, you're probably going to end up kicking yourself in the rump. If you miss the premiere, you're probably going to wind up kicking yourself there. I have a strong suspicion you're going to wind up kicking yourself in the rear end over and over repeatedly. I just have a strange notion that that's what's going to occur. BlackChannelFilms.com. That is BlackChannelFilms.com. I want to thank everyone who has contributed to support tonight's program on PayPal, Super Chat, Venmo. Thank you all very much for that. I've gotten support here tonight, so I want to thank you all. Usually I go down a roll call of as many names as I think I can fit in. So tonight I just want to thank you all. You know who you are. I know who you are. Thank you very much for that. We appreciate it. I want to thank all of you for tuning in here tonight. And if you are new here to the Black Channel, you've seen what we do and you see why we are the new Black media. You don't want to miss out on this. Every weekend, click that red subscribe button, click that yellow notification bell, join us each and every time that we are here. And if you haven't been to BlackChannelFilms.com, check it out. You don't want to miss this. I want to thank all of you for following us for all this time. You wanted to know what a real media outlet looks like. You wanted to know if we made progress. I rest my case. I want to thank you for tuning in live or recorded. Thank you for liking, subscribing, and sharing. And this concludes tonight's broadcast of the Black Channel. I am your host, your brother, your humble servant, the Black Authority. And until next time, my brothers and my sisters from all around the world, remember, Black is the future, and the future is uncompromising.